Hello everyone. This is Story Hunter. Today I will tell you about the soldiers of the armies of both Dark Lords, the Orcs. I will tell you about their lives, what they did, and what they did during the reign of the Dark Lords. Orcs were the primary soldiers of both Dark Lords' armies, and their most common servants. Invented by Morgoth during the years of the trees of the First Age, they served him and later his successor, Sauron, in their aims to dominate Middle-earth. It was believed by the Eldar that before Orome first discovered Cuivianen, Morgoth had kidnapped some of the Avari and cruelly deformed them, twisting them into the first Orcs. After the Battle of the Powers, many Orcs alongside other servants of Melkor survived in the deep caves, pits, chambers, and tunnels of Melkor's underground fortress Angband. They multiplied and later spread through northern Middle-earth. They were first seen by the dwarves who reported them to Thingol, king of Doriath, causing the latter to seek weapons of war for the first time. For over a millennium, the Orcs were only a minor problem. But when Morgoth returned with the Silmarils, he took full charge of them and soon unleashed them on Beleriand. The newly organized Orcs killed Denethor, the king of the lightly armed Lykendi, but were eventually defeated by Thingol and his allies. They besieged the havens of the Fallis under Círdan, and the siege was maintained until the arrival of the Noldor. The heavy losses that the Sindar suffered at the hands of the Orcs frightened them to the point that Melian, queen of Doriath, raised a great enchantment to protect their kingdom. The Lykendi, who suffered the most in the battle, hid themselves in Osiriand under the cloak of secrecy, or took refuge in Doriath. Melkor was the first to learn of the awakening of the elves. He soon began sending evil spirits among the elves, who planted seeds of doubt against the Valar. It is also rumored that some of the elves were being captured by a rider if they strayed too far, and it was believed by the Eldar that these unfortunate elves were brought to Utumno, where they were cruelly tortured and twisted into orcs. In the last 6 centuries of the First Age, thousands of orcs were bred in Angband by Morgoth, and to participate in the battles of Beleriand, which began after the Noldor arrived to northwestern Middle-earth. They first appeared in the Battle of the Lammoth, where they were defeated by the elves. When the House of Feanor returned to Middle-earth, Morgoth sent a force of orcs against them. Although the orcs outnumbered the exiles, they were no match for the power and wrath of the Noldor, and were quickly and easily defeated. However, Feanor could not defeat the power of Morgoth alone, and he was killed by Balrogs, leaving the orcs to continue to breed under the Dark Lord. Years later, when the House of Fingolfin arrived in Middle-earth, orcs were sent against them as well, but they were utterly defeated in the Battle of the Lammoth. After their crushing defeat in the Dagor Aglareb and in a minor raid on Hithlum, the Orcs, nevertheless, regained their numbers. In the Dagor Bragolach and Nirnaeth Arnoediad, they and their master won crushing victories against the Free Peoples. However, they were nearly destroyed in the War of Wrath that ended in FA 585. And those that survived fled eastwards into the mountains of Angmar, Grey Mountains or Red Mountains. Sometime around SA 1000, Sauron reappeared in Middle-earth and made the land of Mordor his realm, and then started to build the foundations of Barad-dûr. During the War of the Elves and Sauron in SA 1700, the Orcs formed the main host of Sauron's power. Despite the immeasurable number of Orcs present, the battle was won by the elves and the Númenóreans due to their united force, superior weaponry, greater strength and stature, and combat skill. However, Sauron had not been able to gather all the eastern orcs into his armies, as they at first scorned him, seeing only his fair form. It was after his first defeat that Sauron went back among them in a dark guise and subdued them, and was able to begin rebuilding his power. Until Sauron's final downfall in the Third Age, Orcs remained the backbone of the armies of Mordor and of Isengard, while the wizard Saruman ruled it. After the War of the Last Alliance, Mordor was desolate, and the surviving Orcs were concentrated in the Misty Mountains. With the return of Sauron to Dol Guldur and the spread of his evil influence, their numbers began to increase once more. In TA 2475, at the ending of the Watchful Peace, a new, tougher, stronger breed of orc appeared, the black Orcs, specifically bred for fighting men. Following the abandonment of Khazad-dûm by the dwarves, orcs eventually colonized the abandoned halls, killing King Thror when he sought to enter his lost realm. This triggered the War of the Dwarves and Orcs, a massive conflict where the dwarves gathered their full strength and destroyed every orc stronghold they could find in the Misty Mountains. This and the Battle of Five Armies greatly reduced the numbers of northern orcs, weakening their contribution to the War of the Ring. In the meantime, Sauron had returned to Mordor, rebuilding his fortress and creating a vast army of orcs. His thrall Saruman also created the Uruk-hai, a breed of orcs stronger than any seen before. Following the destruction of the One Ring, the orcs scattered, eventually dwindling and being hunted to extinction in the Fourth Age. Orcs were cruel, sadistic, black-hearted, vicious, and hateful of most things, particularly of those who were orderly and prosperous. They were short in stature unless of the Uruk variety, and humanoid in shape. They were generally squat, broad, flat-nosed, sallow-skinned, bow-legged, with wide mouths and slant eyes, long arms, dark skin, and fangs. Description: one huge orc chieftain as almost man-high, and some must have been close to hobbit height, as Sam and Frodo were able to disguise themselves as orcs in Mordor. They were roughly humanoid in shape with pointed ears, sharpened teeth, and grimy skin. Their appearance was considered revolting by most of the other races. Orcs made no beautiful things, but many clever ones, including machines, tools, weapons, and instruments of torture. They were delighted by wheels, engines, and explosions, and could tunnel and mine as well as any but the most skilled dwarves, though they are often untidy and dirty. This was so since the time Melkor bred them, in an unknown process, from mutilated and corrupted elves. They hated themselves, and had an even deeper secret hatred for Melkor, thus resulting as a violent and warlike race in a perpetual state of chaos with itself and others. Despite their abominable nature, orcs were often crafty and clever rather than dim-witted, were capable smiths and craftsmen, though things of their making are described as crude compared to those of the free peoples. Orcs also developed tunnel-making, so as to dwell underground away from the light. It is also worth noting that orcs prefer to do no more work than they can help, as they would rather coerce others into working for them. Wickedness and violence were their nature, and it was not uncommon for them to kill each other in petty quarrels. They had a destructive effect on nature, especially forests, and often destroyed trees to fuel their war-making, particularly those near Isengard. Orcs had unchangeable disdain for all elves, dwarves, and men, though they fought alongside wicked men under Morgoth and then Sauron in the First, Second, and Third Ages, and were also said to have made alliances with wicked dwarves.